This is the Dover Download Podcast. My name is Christopher Parker, and for the past 25 years, I've had the pleasure of working with, learning from, and talking to a variety of volunteer, staff, and community members. This podcast explores conversations, activities, and a variety of policies and programs which exist here in Dover to improve the community in one way or another. With this episode, we are wrapping up our deep dives into the proposed FY26 budget. We're going to hear from Community Services Director John Storr, Library Director Denise LaFrance, and IT Director Annie Dove. Starting us off is John Storr, who probably has the largest portion of the municipal budget under his various areas of control. And I think that probably, on the one hand, leads to the most complex budget, but on the other hand, it's probably some of the most easy because there's a lot of things that carry over year to year. Am I right, John?
Yeah, I think so, Chris. I do say when I do my budget presentation to the council, I do try to point out that community services, try to boil it down and equate it to like paying your own household bills. You got to have your water, your sewer, got to have a roof over you. You may not think about your driveway as much, but with our streets. So I kind of say we're the necessary core bills that you have to take care of. Can't really function without us. You're not going to survive without the water and the sewer, being able to travel on the roads. And all told, through community services, we oversee 15 different budgets, water and sewer being by far and away the largest. But in aggregate, we exceed $35 million total.
So as you come to the table to meet with the manager and go through your proposal, what work have you done to get to that point? Do you look at last year's? Do you look at a 5-year average? How are you putting together that recommendation?
Yeah, Chris, I think it's a combination of multiple factors. I mean, what we do year after year, we plow the roads, we pump the water, we treat the sewer, we have the street lights. A lot of stuff is just we do year after year. Our staffing is really not changed, so staffing rates and benefits are kind of collectively bargained, so that's fairly stable. And we pretty much know the tasks we have to undertake based on prior years with all the vehicles. We have 125 vehicles, so we have running averages, 5-year averages, 10-year averages of how much fuel we have consumed, how much electricity a building has used up. So we try to go back through and then we look at, purchase rates, what's going up with fuel costs, what's going up with electrical costs. And like, for instance, try to pull together just a couple little tidbits. Our water and sewer electrical budget is $1.1 million alone. So that is a huge chunk of our budget. So we just look at the annual kilowatt hour consumption, look at what the current rate is, make a projection if it's going up or down, and just a quick math exercise, and we look at prior year's consumption.
So you come to the table, you have your proposed budget, and there's conversation back and forth. One of the things that you need to highlight for Mike, and you certainly did at your workshop presentation with the council recently, was the changes between FY26 and 25. Most notable, as we've talked about with Dave Denzio previously, is the changes that we need to do with solid waste. Can you walk the listener through what's big there?
I mentioned community services has 15 different budgets. 2 of those, one is recycling, which has historically been paid for through the general fund of the tax dollars. And then the trash program, people are probably familiar with the green pay-as-you-throw trash bags that you have to buy. That's been a special revenue fund, and that has been set up to be self-sufficient, that the revenue we generate through the bags and the bulky tag sales would pay for the contracted services for the trash collection. But what we're finding, the Solid Waste Committee, sounds like you have had Dave Denzio from the Solid Waste Advisory on, they commenced a study to see what would be happening because we have a 5-year contract where waste management, the residents are familiar with the waste management trucks. We're going to be entering we are wrapping up the final year of a 5th-year contract. So we found that none of the larger contractors want to continue the very labor-intensive picking up the bags. They're all going to automated systems. So a driver will be in a truck and he has a mechanical arm. It picks up a giant plastic toter, picks that up. So personnel are not getting out of the truck and manually hand loading. So we knew that the industry was going to be migrating in that direction. So we've done a 2-year extension with Waste Management that will start, the 2-year extension will start this coming July 1. But at the end of the 2-year extension, we're going to transition over to having automated carts with the toters. And having the toters, the way the budget is set up, that we're slowly going to sunset the pay-as-you-throw bags. I just want to pause right there. The bags are going to be in effect July 1. We're going to have them for the next 2 years. But after the 2-year period, we're going to go to an automated system where the cost will be rolled into the budget. As it's currently proposed, will roll into the general fund, so there won't be a fee-based for the resident. You don't have to pay for the toter. You don't have to pay for the bags. You can leave it automated out at the curbside. So that's going to be one of the changes. But one thing I would like to stress with the extension, I think Waste Management recognizing that they're going to have lower costs in the future, the current cost difference when you combine solid waste and recycling currently and to what's coming next year, it's going to be about the same, about $3.4 million in aggregate. So there's really not much of a change. And they're actually going to be a slight decrease by losing the labor costs in 2 years out. I'm kind of getting down into the weeds, but feel like we're going to have some stability with the solid waste and recycling for the next 2 plus 5, 2 manual as is, and then 5 in automated. For the next 7 years, we'll be in good shape with solid waste and recycling.
Are there any other big items that the listener should know about? Any other big changes between 25 and 26?
No, I think one of the things I focus on, just to give an order of magnitude, I say the 15 budget centers under community services, if we're about 35 million, it may be a surprise that almost 20 million of that is water and sewer. So I mentioned water and sewer, we spend like 1.1 million on electricity. There are things that, like the sludge we generate a contracted service on the wastewater. We generate 3,200 tons a year. We have to haul that away. That's 650,000. So these are some big ticket items. I think for the taxpayer is under our streets budget, where we do cash fund capital improvements. If you're going to be doing house improvements every year, you're probably not taking out a home equity loan. You're going to be paying out of pocket for stuff. So there is a significant bump in streets this year. The street budget probably has the single biggest impact. Just to back up and put this in context, our $35 million budget over those 15 budget centers is going up 3.6. I believe the city as a whole is 4.4. So happy that we're slightly under the city average. But one of the big impacts is on our street work, and that's where we cash fund. We do about 2.1 million in annual street paving. We're doing paving overlays, crack sealing, cutting patch, things of that nature. We've had increases in the streets budget for our traffic signals. We've been trying to modernize all the traffic signals, but now we have to focus on the structural components, the mast arms, the supports to make sure those are solid. And we have other increases in the capital portion for general bridge repair, and we're also bumping up sidewalks. Sidewalks are a hot issue right now. I think we've been a little bit behind on funding some of the repairs. So we have an infusion of cash for that. So that's where some of the capital investments are focusing.
Anything else the listener should know?
No, I think we've actually had a few decreases within the budget. So we really try to look year after year how the budgets are trending, see if we can make any type of cuts. We try to be very practical in terms of how we're budgeting, making sure we're cost effective with what we do. I was proud to say that our percent increase at 3.6 was slightly less than the city as a whole. So I think we were doing fairly well, keeping up with the essential services and trying to stay cost effective.
Well, I appreciate you coming in today, and I appreciate your leadership in the Community Service Department and the budget you are providing us.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate being here, Chris.
You're welcome. We're going to continue and get a sense for the library budget with Director Denise LaFrance. Denise, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So last week you presented your budget to the council in a workshop. If you could walk the listener through what you do to prepare a budget request to the city manager and what that's like for you.
Okay, so I have to say this year was a little different because of everything going on at the library. We didn't have a lot of really big asks. What I went through is I knew where I wanted to increase money, which was in digital books, because that is what our public wants. And so what I did is look at other ways I could cut. It was going up by, I think our overdrive went up by 23%. So that's a lot, right? But I know that's really important. And
so there's a give and take.
There's a give and take. You can't just keep asking. So I looked at our databases, and we love statistics. And so I looked at cost per use for something that used to be really popular. It's a lot less popular now. So I made almost $7,000 in cuts in databases and some other things to sort of offset some of the things that I was asking for. So overdrive, like I said, was going up 23%. So that was $4,000. I'd like to buy more overdrive advantage titles because our patrons are waiting a long time for things in the consortium. So I really knew what I wanted to do. And so just looked at statistics on how I could sort of offset some of the costs.
And to clarify, overdrive is access to the digital consortium. Overdrive advantage is priority or buying additional copies of specific books.
Exactly. Overdrive gets us into the statewide consortium, and Overdrive Advantage are popular titles that we can buy for just Dover PD.
Yeah. In the streaming world, it's Disney versus Disney Plus.
It's something like that, yes. Yeah, so...
So it sounds like at the same time as answering my question about what you did to review the budget, you've also sort of started in on what is different this year. And so I assume that what's different this year is a focus on the digital needs, a focus on trying to balance those needs with the operating costs that maybe you aren't going to have because the library is under construction.
Right. Well, yeah, so the operating costs were all sort of, we don't know what those will be somewhat. So that was really difficult. But yeah, just looking at ways I could control, things I could control.
Yeah. Any staffing changes?
Staffing changes? No, we are that have the same, and that's those are costs that we have no control over. But staffing is staying the same. We added some things like programming because our programming numbers have just been steadily rising, and so we know through surveys and different questions we ask people on our newsletter, we know that is something they want, and so try to satisfy that need with more programming. And of course, the cost of programming is going up, but we are also very lucky because we are able to keep the costs low for that because our friends of the library pay for programs as well. So that's a nice bonus for us.
So one of the things I want to verify with you won't be in the library physically, the traditional library physically.
Right.
Through at least the first half of the FY26 budget.
Yes.
But you didn't really change the books and collections funding, right? You're not going to say we're not buying books. You might buy them a little later than you would have when you have more room. But I want to assure the listener that while you're shifting to increase digital, it's not at the expense of the physical books.
It isn't.
This is mostly for me, who still likes physical books.
No, it isn't, because those numbers are also rising, especially in the children's section. That is rising probably twice as quickly. So, no, we will absolutely still be buying physical books. It's just this is an added thing, really. Yeah.
If we can increase literacy both in the written form, paper, physical, and the digital, that's a win-win.
I think so.
Cool. Anything else the listeners should know? Come and visit you in the McConnell Center?
Yes, bear with us during this crazy year and absolutely come visit us in the McConnell Center.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
We're going to wrap this episode up by chatting with Annie Dove, our Director of Information Technology. Annie, how are you today?
I am well. How are you, Chris?
I am peachy. So, as we've been asking our colleagues, when you put together a budget to present to the city manager for his consideration, what sort of elements are you looking at in your department to provide guidance?
Well, I can tell you the Office of IT usually starts early in the process. We're already looking at this at the close of the prior fiscal year. So for fiscal 26 proposed, at the close of fiscal 24, we're getting our eyes on all client server systems in the city, getting total counts, looking at overall age, and using that to calculate a replacement cycle for the year ahead. So that's the starting block for the Office of IT budget proposal, is looking at those numbers. From there, from looking at what we have and where we need to go, we're looking at existing applications, hosting agreements, that type of thing, as well as any initiatives that the strategic plan, the master plan are driving. And so we'll look there as well.
So in that regard, I would think part of what drives your costs are certainly personnel costs, which are shared amongst all departments. But in your area, I think the technology cost, which is in my mind both the capital of I need a new laptop or server, but also the software costs. And while we try to lock in some for a longer term, there are some that are they are what they are. We get a bill and we have to pay it if we want to keep using the service.
That's true. And Office of IT is unique in that we're an internal service fund. So these numbers are actually creating a bill of sorts for our fellow departments. And we do try to find the happy middle ground where we're not going for the best, we're not going for the worst. We're trying to find a good balance in terms of replacement cycles and technologies and amounts.
So other than software cost increases and potential increase in the hardware, are there any other changes in the FY26 budget from 25? Anything that jumps out to you?
There's a couple things you'll see in fiscal 26 proposed budget. The first I would mention is that we've done a good job in adding network resiliency to a lot of our municipal facilities. This budget adds 3 additional network services to our key water and sewer facilities, so we can add resiliency there as well. Another piece that is just typical for us is maintaining the replacement cycles. So we have network equipment at our communication towers that are getting to an age where we need to start looking at replacing that equipment. So those are 2 things that you'll see in the fiscal year proposed budget. The other one is more of an accounting feature than anything else. This year, our finance department introduced an account for us to use, which has a code 4450, which is software and subscription licenses. So where in the past we use our technical services account, 4341, to track subscriptions, we've moved that all over to the 4450 account. So you'll see technical services drop a bit and then that increase over in software and subscription licenses.
As we wrap up, are there any other things you want to make sure the listener is aware of or has at their fingertips or your tips, as it were?
I would say the first half of the year for fiscal 26 will be focused on wrapping up some ARPA-funded projects. We were lucky enough with city manager and council support to have approximately $1.3 million to upgrade several systems in the city. So that will be the first half of the year for us, certainly. And the other thing I've mentioned in the past is that so many providers are moving to the cloud. So it is a game of planning and decision-making and selection to figure out what's the best use of the City of Dover dollars on an application-by-application or service-by-service basis, whether it's on-premise or in the cloud. And if it is in the cloud, managing the security of those engagements. City of Dover takes the lead with our vendor cybersecurity agreement, as well as the cost. So if we can step into a multi-year engagement to reduce that cost over time, we'll do so.
I appreciate you coming in and letting the listener know what's going on with your budget. If they're interested, they're more than welcome to go to the Budget Revealed webpage off the City of Dover webpage and see your presentation as well as the community services and library from the same night and all of the budget presentations that have happened since the February 20th kickoff of the individual elements. Have a great day. Dover has a wealth of history in its over 400 years of existence. Coming up, Mike Gillis is going to share some of that history with us.
This week in 1889, Dover residents awoke to devastating news as their second city hall, built just 21 years earlier at a cost of $71,000, was reduced to, quote, a blackened mass of smoldering ruins and shaky brick walls. The fire that broke out in the early morning hours of March 22nd would dramatically alter the downtown landscape and raise serious questions about building safety and fire management in the city. A police officer first discovered the blaze near the furnace and immediately sounded the alarm. In the initial response, firefighters believed they had successfully extinguished the flames, and city officials breathed a collective sigh of relief. But their optimism was short-lived as a, quote, stream of fire suddenly appeared in the courtroom before rapidly spreading to the stage and dressing rooms. Despite Dover's recently upgraded water system and a fire department always considered efficient, the blaze quickly grew beyond control. 20 water streams were directed at the burning building, though witnesses noted that several were, in their words, misdirected. The Dover Inquirer reported that many people thought the building might have been saved under better management of the fire department, suggesting human error may have contributed to the total loss. As the fire intensified, city officials rushed to salvage what they could. George Durgan, clerk of the court, managed to secure his furniture and a strongbox containing documents he said were of great value. City Clerk John Stevens braved the smoke to save a substantial amount of property with assistance from officers and firemen. Frank Tompkins, Register of Deeds, and C.S. Clifford, Register of Probate, also rescued valuable papers and office furniture. One of the most dramatic moments came when the building's dome, fully engulfed in flames, created what observers described as a gigantic piece of fireworks. Remarkably, the tower clock continued ticking until 3:30 a.m., when the fire had consumed half the tower. When the roof finally collapsed, the heavy clock crashed through the stairways, intensifying the inferno below. The fire briefly spread to the nearby Belknap Church, but was quickly extinguished by the Cocheco Manufacturing Company's hose crew. In a sobering note, the newspaper reported that just days before the fire, safety concerns had been raised during 2 public events at the hall. A dramatic performance of Ben-Hur and a concert by a Swedish quartet had both drawn packed audiences, prompting questions about the safety of the balconies. The Inquirer noted that, quote, citizens consoled themselves for their loss in thinking that possibly a greater catastrophe had been averted. The site where the second City Hall stood, at the corner of Central Avenue and Washington Street, seemed plagued by misfortune. After the fire, the city sold the land to the Masons, who built a temple there, only to see it burned down 3 years later. This string of disasters earned the location the nickname the Hot Corner. Dover's relationship with its city halls has been marked by fire throughout its history. The first City Hall, built in 1842 at the same Central Avenue and Washington Street location, burned on November 23, 1866. The second, completed in 1868, met its fiery end in 1889, as described here. The third City Hall, dedicated in 1891, featured an impressive opera house, but suffered the same fate as its predecessors when it burned on August 3, 1933. The current and fourth City Hall, a Georgian colonial structure built in 1935 at 288 Central Avenue, houses the bell from the original opera house in its 80-foot tower and has, thankfully, avoided the curse of flames that claimed its predecessors.
Thanks for listening to the Dover Download this week. If you like what you heard, subscribe through your favorite podcast aggregator. And if you have something you want to hear a topic on, let us know. Finally, this is just one of the many ways we share information about the city of Dover. You can subscribe to the Dover Downloads email newsletter every week or other newsletters that we have by going to the City of Dover homepage, www.dover.nh.gov. Have a great week.